Many of us rely on a certain amount of technology in our worship services, and you can prepare as much as you want. You can put in as much redundancy as you can afford, but there's always the risk that something could go wrong that could cause a complete train wreck. There's always that one thing in the back of your mind that could happen that if it did, is your biggest fear. Well, we had a moment just like that last weekend, and I thought it would be good to share what happened and share some observations that I made after the fact, because what could have been a train wreck wasn't. Hey, it's Dave Dolphin at practicalworshipblog.com, sharing ideas, tips, and practical advice for the everyday worship leader. And like many of you, we run pre-recorded tracks with Ableton Live during every single one of our services. We have live drums, electric guitar, keys, and acoustic guitar, along with several singers, but we add in tracks for bass guitar, rhythm electric guitar, keyboard atmospheres like pads and organs, some percussion like shakers and tambourines, even sometimes some additional gang vocals. Our Ableton rig is pretty solid, and we very rarely even have the slightest hint of a problem with it. It's a very easy thing for us to put our trust in. So here we are on a typical Sunday morning in the middle of the second song, and the click track disappears in our ears right about now. I'm trying to figure out what on earth is going on while still trying to drive this train, because I could still hear the tracks. I could still hear the background keys and the bass guitar, so I knew that the computer didn't crash and that Ableton was still going. And you can hear the drummer start clicking on the hi-hats, which is not normally in this arrangement, so I'm thinking maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my in-ear mix, and the drummer realizes something's wrong, and so he's clicking the tempo for me and the rest of the band. But once the arrangement builds back up again, I can tell we are not with the tracks. We're about a quarter note off, so a million things are running through my mind right now. I'm trying to think of the possible reasons that the click disappeared and what are the possible quick solutions to those reasons, while still trying to sing the right words and play the right chords and look somewhat engaged in worship. At the end of the song, I make the call.
Okay, I'm going to call an audible real fast. Go ahead. Yeah, let's give God praise. I'm going to give Will a second to reset, and hey, Travis, I'm going to give you this heads up too. Our click disappeared. But this is a great opportunity, and I was wondering if I should share this or not. And apparently God wants me to, because you guys don't know this, but like we play along with some pre-recorded stuff, and there's a metronome that goes goop, 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 goop the whole time, goop, goop, goop. One of these days we should put that in the house. You guys can hear it. And anyway, when that thing disappears, it's like the train goes off the tracks.
So I'll explain at the end of the video what actually happened, what actually broke. But now that I've had a chance to look back, here's a few observations I've made about that situation from Sunday. First off, nobody freaked out. No one on stage, no one in tech booths. In fact, several people told me after the service that had I not said anything, they would have never known that something was wrong. And the reason why nobody freaked out is because we all knew the plan so well. We rehearse these songs over and over and over, and we prepare the set over and over and over. And the goal is that by the time we get to Sunday morning, we're operating out of muscle memory. And we've found that it actually helps us to engage more in worship, because we're not worried about, are we going to the chorus next? Are we going to the bridge next? What's the next chord? We still had 2 more songs to play, which we had to play without tracks. So we all proceeded with kind of a heightened sense of alertness. But we had a plan, and there's a lot of comfort in knowing that there is a plan that you can cling to. 2, it did make me think through my redundancy plans. Was there anything I could have had in place that would have prevented this problem from happening? Now, we do have backstage backups to key pieces of gear. We even, since we run 2 computers for Ableton Live or for main stage, we have a plan in place that if one of those computers crashes, we can easily move both programs over to the other computer. But all of that only protects you before the service. If something breaks before the service. If you want to have a plan in place where if something breaks during the service, what the big shows do is they actually have 2 computers running the same set of tracks at the same time, running into an A-B switch, and that switch is smart enough to listen to the A system, and if it notices a loss in audio on that system, it seamlessly moves everything over and switches over to the B system. Now, having something like that in place might have solved our issue, but that comes at a cost. You always have to balance the cost costs and the risk. But the point is that these kinds of situations reveal your vulnerabilities, and it's always good to sit down and think through, is there a cost-effective solution that could prevent this kind of thing in the future? 3, it was a great opportunity to just be real. You know, we strive for excellence just like a lot of churches do, but excellence isn't the goal. It's a means to an end, but it's not the goal. And sometimes it's good for the church to see behind the curtain, that things break and things don't always go to plan. But at the end of the day, it's not about any of that. It's about inspiring people to pursue God. 4 is the God factor. I really was wrestling with whether or not I should share something. I had had a conversation with our senior pastor earlier in the week about the song "Oh Come to the Altar," which was the next song in the set. And it was about Hebrews 13:10, how it talks about Jesus being our altar.
And there's a lot of things in our Christian faith, whether it be baptism or coming to the altar, whatever, there's a lot of things that symbolize something else.
It was a great conversation, and it was probably something I'd share at some point in the future, but I had made the decision to not share it this particular weekend, but I recognized that God seemed to think otherwise, so I went with it. And it actually was a neat opportunity to teach and lead the church in this truth. Again, excellence and preparation are a means to an end. They're not the goal. Now, as far as what actually happened, a lot of things ran through my mind Sunday morning. I thought, well, maybe the click track channel got muted on the mixer accidentally. Or sometimes Ableton Live, this is really rare, but it has happened to me, where the audio doesn't buffer correctly for whatever that sound is, the click track or whatever. And so Ableton thinks it's playing audio, but nothing's coming out. I actually thought when I was preparing this video, it's in my script because I was so sure that this was going to be the problem, was that the audio interface, that particular channel went bad, because the audio interface that we use is a Behringer, and you are kind of taking your life in your own hands when you're using a piece of gear that's Behringer. So do you know what it was? We have these panels for inputs on the back of our stage, and then those snake lines run to front of house, but they come right to the wall, and so sometimes we need these jumpers to get the input from the connection of the snake to the mixer, and we had a bad cable. And it wasn't even at the connections. It was actually somewhere here in the middle. So we chopped off the end so that we're not tempted to put it back in service, but it's always a cable. It's always a cable. Well, if this is your first time on the channel, welcome. We love sharing ideas and tips and practical advice for the everyday worship leader with videos just like this one. So if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. That way you know when new videos are uploaded every single Tuesday. And if you know someone that might benefit from this video, consider sharing the link on Facebook or Twitter, or send somebody an email. And for great practical advice, check out practicalworshipblog.com.